Morning, you're with Nick Rheinberger, 97.3 ABC Illawarra. Birth and new babies are wonderful things, but unfortunately, they don't always go to plan. In fact, that is the title of the book I'm holding in front of me here. When pregnancy and birth don't go to plan, full of inspiring real-life stories of coping with miscarriage, infant loss, premature and sick newborns. Jo Spicer is one of the writers, is the writer of this book and put it together, and she joins us now here at 97.3 ABC Illawarra. G'day, Jo. How are you going?
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing well. You've had personal experience in this area. Tell me about your own story.
Absolutely. So I have two children. Both the pregnancies and births were not what I expected at all. My first pregnancy was fairly normal, but ended up in an emergency cesarean, and my daughter was actually wedged in my hips, and she literally came out completely black and blue. And that
wedged in your hips?
Yes.
Like
I don't
right
think
in
it would happen today.
like in a corner of the pelvis or something like that.
Yeah, like stuck in my pelvis. So if we hadn't just gone through a trial of labour and she had maybe we had an ultrasound, they would have seen that her head wouldn't have fit through my hips, and I wouldn't have had to go through 24 hours of very painful and distressing labour, only to end up in an emergency caesarean. And then her head came out black and blue. She had such extreme bruising that with an unformed liver still developing, it couldn't process to get that bruising through her system. So we got to a critical stage where the specialist was saying to me, you have to be prepared for a total blood exchange. And that would be removing all of her blood and replacing it completely with someone's donated blood. So that was pretty scary. We got to the very critical moment and it just started to creep back down the other way. So we were very blessed in that situation.
Wow. That is a huge thing. What do you think that does to your future relationship with the baby after that?
Well, she's a healthy 24-year-old now, which is awesome. But at the time, all I could think of was, have I done something wrong? Could I have avoided this? And all those guilty feelings, all that shame, all that questioning, all that hopelessness of being unable to do absolutely anything to help her. You just think I'd swap places with that baby in a second.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't, and you're just stuck in that indescribable situation. It's just awful. But, that baby becomes so precious to you, and you just value every second you have with them.
I mean, clearly, that's what's inspired this book, but it's a hell of a lot of work. Did you find that there wasn't a lot of these stories out there that perhaps parenthood, especially motherhood, and pregnancy, etc., is perhaps over-romanticised and we don't get to hear many of these stories?
Absolutely, and I think there's a growing information base for people experiencing miscarriage, early pregnancy loss, infant loss, and the more I researched and explored it and talked to women, I realised that there's a lot of taboo and shame about this. One of the women I spoke to has had 12 miscarriages.
Oh,
now,
my
how do you?
God.
And how do you deal with that? I just realised that we often don't talk about it either because we feel ashamed that our body can't do what it was designed to do. So I think it's really important for us to share these stories so that people realise when this happens to them, they're not alone. There are other women going through this, and there are ways and means to get through this terrible time. And I guess that's really what I'm all about now, like helping people get through traumatic experiences. Because as you know, I did the book on cancer, and the same sort of tools that you need to get through a cancer diagnosis are the same that you need to get through any traumatic experience. So
how would you describe those tools, broadly?
Definitely. So I've got resources on my website, and they're a combination of, it's like a toolkit, I guess. It includes things like working on yourself, allowing yourself time to grieve, not judging yourself when you have those emotions, allowing yourself to feel, realising that there's no right or wrong way to feel. Then there's a whole toolkit of things you can use, like journaling, meditation, professional help, psychologists. Go to your GP and get the right sort of help. There's just so many tools out there, and what's really important, I think, is hearing someone's story and hearing how that worked for them. Not every idea might work for you, but perhaps you can pick out one or two that you could try that might make the difference for you.
The thing that I really learnt out of this was actually towards the end of the book, which is how to talk to people, that particularly friends that have had miscarriages. That you don't say, oh well, at least the body knows what it's doing. It's a blessing in disguise. You can always have another one, and all that sort of thing. That kind of patch over the grief. That you really need to acknowledge the grief, no matter whether it's 2 weeks into your pregnancy or 6 months. That was a really useful thing for me to read, I have to say, because I've probably been guilty of doing that in the past.
I think we all are, because we want to make that person feel better. But in actual fact, they need to be validated. And those sorts of, sayings and that just sort of roll off our tongue, they can actually be hurtful to that person, because the minute you find out you're pregnant, in your mind, you've probably planned out the nursery, you've planned out what they're going to, what they're going to do, and imagined, what the future would be like for that baby that's just beginning. And then when it's lost, it's not just the fetus inside you; it's all those dreams and hopes and thoughts of the future that go crashing down with it.
Yeah.
So I think helping people understand what to do, and I think that's a really important part of what I do. Is I try and always include stuff for carers and support people and friends on how they can help someone who's going through this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bald, really. There's no words that can make her feel better or that will take her pain away. The best thing you can do is acknowledge her loss. A short expression of her understanding is all that is needed. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry you're going through this. I know how much it meant for you. I mean, these are really useful, pieces of advice that you're putting in here, I have to say. So, how are you, getting this book to people? Is this kind of in regular bookstores? I know you kind of self-publish this, don't you?
So it's in. You can go to any bookshop. If it's not on the shelf, just ask them and they can get it in for you. It's on all the online retailers, Booktopia, Amazon. There's ebooks on Amazon, so you can get it electronically as well on your Kindle. And certainly from our new platform, Bright Butterfly, which is devoted to helping people connect when they're going through these traumas, particularly cancer and pregnancy and birth. And we've got there a whole lot of inspirational art and handmade artisan gifts to help people feel comforted, feel security, feel some sort of light of hope. It's called Bright Butterfly, and the idea of that was a butterfly signifies the transformation you have to go through when you go through trauma. And we called it Bright because we want to be a light to help lead people through the journey that they have to make themselves.
All right, Jo, as always, great to talk to you, and congratulations on the book.
Thanks, Nick. Great to talk to you too.
That's Jo Spicer, and the book is called When Pregnancy and Birth Don't Go to Plan, out now through Bright Butterfly, her new label.